We didn't grow up knowing what executive function skills were. Life felt overwhelming. Managing time, staying organized, and feeling stuck made everything difficult. What we didn't realize was that we lacked the skills to plan, prioritize, and break goals into manageable steps. After years of trial and error, we've seen how powerful executive function skills can be. With expert interviews, real stories, and practical strategies, this podcast is the resource we wish we had. Whether you're a student, parent, or professional, we're here to help you unlock your potential. Welcome to the Executive Function for All podcast. Today we're joined by John Gassner. John is an ADHD coach who specializes in working with student athletes. John was a former Division I swimmer and had a successful career in sports marketing at ESPN. In this episode, he explains why discipline shown on the field doesn't always translate to the classroom. He shares strategies to help student athletes close that gap, manage busy study schedules, and build consistency in order to avoid burnout. John is an amazing coach, and I recommend this to any student athlete or parent who's considering being a college athlete. Let's begin. John, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, excited to be here, Brandon. Thank you.
I wanted to talk to you because you and I both work in this really niche thing that I feel like is massive, but nobody else does it. And that's like helping student athletes with executive function skills.
Yep.
How on earth did you get into this?
Well, I think kind of goes back to when I was a little kid. So I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was in kindergarten, and sports was always my sanctuary, my refuge. So back then, not much was known about it, and I had some challenging experiences as a kid growing up. Just a lot of stigmatization around just being neurodivergent, which wasn't a term back then. But I was a good athlete and I was a good student. So sports are sort of, quantitative. You're good at it and you can find your people, right? And I played a lot of different sports growing up. And then when I went to high school, I played 3 sports at the varsity level. So again, always my refuge and my sanctuary. And then I swam in college. When I grew up, the prevailing philosophy is once you graduate high school, you grew out of ADHD, which obviously we know is not the case. So I was going through college as an athlete with ADHD, and like a lot of kids in their freshman year, I crapped out in that freshman year. So I had a really tough year, but I gritted out and I made my way through and did very well. And all along the while, I was swimming at a very high competitive level. So that always stuck with me. Then I was in the sports business for a very long time. I worked at ESPN and different companies selling sponsorships and doing events. And when I wanted to do something different, I came into ADHD coaching. I had a coach, I had a great experience. And so I got certified to be an ADHD life coach. And I joined a company called Order Out of Chaos, which is one of the preeminent student coaching companies out there. And shortly into my time there, I'm like, hey, I think there's something here for athletes, right? Just because the time and energy demands on athletes is just very different than for other people. Not in a competitive sense to people who do music or theater or stuff like that, but just you and I both being former athletes and athletes with ADHD, we know what those demands are. So I brought it to our founder, Leslie, and she saw something there as well. And that's when we started the ADHD Athlete Coaching Academy. And it's been a great success. I think people really wire into that athlete mentality and then also being neurodivergent.
You and I have an absurdly similar background, especially with the transition to college. And I think, like me, we just brush over that. You're like, yeah, I struggled a lot in college, and then I made it through. And everyone's like, wait, what happened in the middle there?
Yeah.
So what helped you turn it around after your freshman year?
Willpower, resilience, some grit. My parents came in and said, maybe you should take a semester off, which was like a gap year now. I'm like, I'm not taking that off. I'm not quitting. I'm not going to do that. So I started to get that resolve built in. And then I'll look around and I'll try to say this with some humility, Brandon. I look around and said, these kids who are getting A's and B's, they're not that much smarter than me. I can do it. So I just hunkered down and said, this is going to be my goals for swimming, what I want to do, but also this is what I want to do for grades. And I just invoked some discipline around everything, around timing, how I spent my time. Can I say it was most effective, efficient? Absolutely not. Not as a coach who worked with student athletes with ADHD, but it worked for me. So I think that's part and parcel of how you and I are wired. We just have that type of perseverance and grit and willpower. Maybe it comes from, from a lot of procrastination, or we put our backups against the wall and getting it done, but we get it done, right? And hopefully we get it done fairly well. So that's what kind of got me through school. And also, like, you played sports in college, you have a built-in community. So I was lucky there where I was not doing so well as a student, but I always had the swimming to turn to. And I did fairly well in swimming at my school. So there were always some positives to anchor me. As I said, John, you're smart enough to get this done. Just figure it out.
Yeah, I know speaking of the community, I leaned heavily on my community. Other people on the team, tutors and everything, I leaned so heavily on them because I didn't know where to start. Like, I was so overwhelmed. Was that how it was for you, or did you just kind of understand it in a way which you just needed to work on certain systems?
Well, as we've got to know each other, I think you can tell I'm a verbal processor.
Yeah.
So that's how I started to work it out. And it was probably back then, now that I'm looking back, just having this conversation, I really enjoyed the networking and the relationship building. So I really tapped into my professors in terms of what I want to do. I also switched. I was on a track to be an engineer because that's what my dad wanted me to do. And that I failed miserably. So I quickly turned to the things I was good at, which is like writing and history and religion and stuff like that. So I think a part of it was like, just kind of like, what am I good at? Like, what do I like doing? And that is like how the ADHD brain is wired, right? Like, where does your interest lead you? Where your interest leads you, that's when you can hyper-focus and you can start to get stuff done in a more effective and efficient way. So I think it was like a combination of factors that got me there, but I didn't like reach out to advisors or stuff like that, but I think I really tapped into my professors, and you get a good positive feedback loop, which I'm sure you tell your college students too, right? Like, advocacy is everything.
Oh yeah.
Reach out to your professors. It's not to kiss up to them. It's like to develop a relationship. So they see that you're, wanting to be a good student and do well. And then when you need help, you have that relationship.
Yeah. So let's say, because I don't know about you, but I felt like I was all alone. I thought I was the only one in the world who had gone through these struggles, when really it's like, at least on the football team, is at least a third, if not half, the freshmen who are going through something very similar that I was going through.
Yeah.
Let's say a parent or student's listening right now, they just really struggled. Where would you start? Because it feels really overwhelming.
Yeah, I would take a beat or two for a minute and pull out and start to, identify where are the challenges first, right? What's going on here? Is it too much sport, not enough school? Are you not organized? Are you not managing your time effectively? Are you procrastinating a lot? So start to unpack what the challenges are first, right? And then start to identify, either on your own, through the school, through, if you're diagnosed with ADHD, the Disability Services Center, which, by the way, I do not like that term, but that's what they coined it as.
Correct. Well, and talk about a stigma to walk in for athletes. Like, go see the Disability Service Center, right? Like the way you're programmed as a student athlete, those two terms don't send a jive.
Yeah, how psyched are you to go to disability?
Of course, take your teammates with you, so everyone knows, right?
Everybody wants to go.
Yeah.
So I'd say unpack what the challenges are. Definitely what you just said a few minutes ago. Reach out for the help, right? So the Disability Services Center, your advisor, tell them what's going on. Be somewhat vulnerable, what's going out there, because you just made the perfect point. You are not alone. So many people are going through this, where they have ADHD or different learning difference, right? Or they just struggle in general. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. The other thing I'd say is self-compassion, right?
It's a good one.
Right? Because it stinks and it's hard. As you harp on again, like you say, you're all alone. You're not. And usually, and it's hard for young people to hear this, and I have 2 kids in college, it's never as bad as it seems, right? And things can get course corrected, and you can learn skills, and you can be the student and the student athlete you want to be.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Getting really tactical. Yep. Just you and I doing this work, we know this. When a student comes home, they're very defensive. What about you? I was incredibly defensive. Right?
Oh yeah, defensive, obstinate, still the descriptor.
Yeah, very defensive. And then one of the core executive function deficits we see is this metacognition. You have a poor understanding of how you learn, and you have a poor understanding of yourself.
Yeah.
This is a hard question, but to the parents in the community whose students struggled, and you think they have a poor understanding, so they don't even know where it fell apart, what now? And I ask, this is a question I commonly get.
Yeah. So high school or college student?
College student.
So yes. So we have found many high school students, right, haven't learned how to study, haven't learned how to learn. Many of them are, the 2E, twice exceptional, very bright. They can get through almost junior year of high school on talent alone, right? Maybe they have photographic memories. Maybe it just comes to them quickly. But once some of those pre-calc classes hit, those AP classes hit, once you really have to put your nose to the grindstone, that's where things start to fall apart. Now, maybe some of them still get through, but a lot of them haven't learned how to study. They haven't learned how to learn, right? And they very much can. And it doesn't take years and years and years to do it. It takes a plan, it takes a strategy, it takes the commitment to do it. So one part is to have that hard conversation, like just ask the question. Like, I'm sure you do this all the time, Brandon. Like, I'll ask the question to students. How do you go about planning your day? I don't know, 5, 8 out of 10. I don't have a plan, John. So what you're telling me, Amanda, is you just wing it. Yes, that's how I go about it. Okay, well, we just uncovered one thing of what we can do to fix the problem, which is to teach you how to plan, to teach you how to manage your time and see your time. So I think it's having that hard conversation first, but also with compassion and letting them know, like, listen, if you don't know what to do, we can help you figure out how to do it. Parents, the school, coaches.
Yeah, I love that response, first of all. What comes to mind for me is that one of the most common things I do is if I have a task for a student that I'm meeting for the first time, let's say they have to contact disability services to get accommodations.
Yeah.
I'll say, okay, we have to do that. How are you going to remember?
Yes.
Great
question.
And if their answer is, well, I'm going to remember, you're in a ton of trouble in college.
Oh, yeah.
There is so much going on as a student athlete because most people don't understand the learning curve. Like the amount of plays you have to learn depending on your sport, on top of school. And if you're relying on your memory, I can tell you right away you're going to be in trouble as a student athlete.
Yes.
So I'm the first thing I'm looking for is, do they have an organizational system? And that will tell me everything I need to know, whether they're defensive or not.
Yes. It's the easiest question and the one that they may be most embarrassed to answer is, I'll just remember it. No, you won't, because no one can. It doesn't matter how your brain
There's
is
so
wired.
much coming in.
That's why you have a planner. That's why you have a digital calendar. That's why you have a syllabus, right? And that's how we have to start to get you organized. So yeah, those kind of questions. How do you plan? How do you remember? Those pointed questions for the parents, but more for the coaches and the people who are working on a more consistent basis with the student athlete.
Yeah, and we take for granted how much we do for our children in high school. Like in college, that's what loads up these executive functions, is that you have to remember to put gas in your car. You have to remember to do laundry. You have to remember to do all these things that a lot of things were taken care of for you. So not only is it school and sports like it was, you're taxing your working memory with all this stuff that you have to learn, right?
Yes.
What are other common executive function challenges you see with student athletes?
I'd say they have more to do with less time and less energy to do it. That's the biggest challenge. So it's time and energy management. Right? You just talked about what they have to exert. So student athletes with ADHD have to work twice as hard as people who don't have ADHD. It's not an excuse, it's just an explanation. So if you have college, now you don't have the scaffolding you just talked about with the parents, and you have to start to learn adulting. That's what you have to start learning. Eventually your food, all those kind of things. You don't go to school every day, or you only go to school a little bit of a day, right? But you may have 2 days, right? You got off season, just throw it all in there. So you have just being a college student without the scaffolding and the structure, right? And now you're throwing sports on top of it on a brain that's not wired to do things effectively and efficiently. That's a spicy recipe, right? So a lot of things I try to work on with the athletes is the time and the energy management, right? They need time to refuel. They need time to restore, right? But they also, this is the life they chose. And I'm not trying to be, hard about it. But yeah, like you got a lot going on. If you have little pockets during the day to do your work, let's figure out how to train your brain to do it during that time, right? If you're not going to have the time to do it after practice and eating, etc. Sleep, ginormous, right? Taken for granted. Ginormous for athletes, ginormous for everybody, but particularly for student athletes with ADHD. It totally affects their focus. If they're not on a good sleep routine, and every college student should be, but if they're not on a good sleep routine, that's where they're going to get in trouble as well. So we work on sleep routines as well. Then we talk about nutrition, right? And I'm not a nutritionist, but that's what feeds your brain. That's what feeds your body. So are you staying nourished? Are you staying hydrated? Basic questions like that. So those are the type of, when I think about time and energy management as the biggest challenges for student athletes with ADHD. And then we work on a plan that makes sense for them based on their sport, their school schedule, and their social life.
Yeah, I really like the energy management piece. I've never heard it phrased in that way before. And just like time management, I'm sure a lot of your student athletes struggle with this energy management.
Oh yeah, 100%. So I live in Denver now. I used to live in New York City. I had two students when I lived in New York City and Denver, which is ironic. And I had one student who was a very good soccer player. Senior year, when she wasn't playing on the high school team, she had to travel 45 minutes an hour each way for club. She had an hour of pocket worth of time between coming home from high school and then going back out, right? But she procrastinated, then admittedly so, and didn't really use that time. So I talked about like, okay, what happens if we spent a half hour of that hour just getting something done? Homework problems, studying towards a project, whatever it was. So when you came home, you would A, have less to do, and B, we would bring down the overwhelmingness because you could look at your schedule and say, wow, I got some stuff done. Okay. What also was happening because she was procrastinating, she was losing sleep. So she was tired every day and she wasn't playing soccer at her best and she wasn't able to focus on school. So we really focused on that pocket of time and the halo effect that it would have on the rest of her time and energy management. And lo and behold, once she picked it up, she's like, yeah, this is kind of cool, John. Like I get to come home and I have less. And here's the other thing that happened, which I didn't even think about till it did with her. She's like, I was able to move through my work much faster because I felt less overwhelmed, less anxious. And I was looking forward to getting an extra 45 minutes to an hour of sleep.
And you're not doing your work at 8 o'clock at night after soccer practice and school, right?
Yeah.
Well, and this is an assumption, but I'm assuming during that hour pocket, she was on her phone, which could also be taxing these executive functions as well.
I'm sure you tell your students as well, Brandon, the phone goes outside the room.
While we're productive.
Yes. Leave it in the kitchen, give it to your parents or whatever. Leave outside your room, turn it off. Yeah, the phone is huge. The other thing too is, you can only work for so long, right? Before you're not absorbing information. So we're big on using timers, and people with ADHD generally are sprinters, not marathoners, right? So how do you use that pocket of time and say, well, it may not be the whole hour. Listen, I get you got to come home, you got to get something to eat and whatever. You probably need 10 minutes to go to your launch pad and get all your soccer gear. No problem.
Yeah.
But what can you do in that 25 to 40 minutes of time? Put a timer on for 20 or 25 minutes, like the Pomodoro method that we all know. Whatever works for you, but time it. So maybe it's the time over the task to get it done. And that's when you start, like, this, right? The brain, you can train the brain to do a lot of different things. And if you can train your brain, like if I do 2 things for 25 minutes each, I'm going to feel great when I get back from soccer practice. That's a win.
Yeah. The amount of time that escapes us, right? One of the most common things I hear from all college students, but specifically student athletes, is there's no time. There's no time. But then when you really look closely at the day, you see these 20, 30 minutes of time. Usually it escapes you on the phone, but it can escape you in a lot of different ways. And sometimes we just need the break, right? You just
Absolutely.
You need energy management, like you said. But there's a lot of these pockets of time that escape us, and then we're exhausted and have all this homework at the end of the day.
Yeah. So freshman year of college, I went to my academic advisor, and he said, John, there's 168 hours in a week, 24 times 7, right? How do you use them? He said, going to school, doing your work, swim practice, swim meets, social. You do that inventory. I do that a lot with students, right? You will see there are hours and hours and hours of time left over. So first off, that's like making it reality. Second thing to think about is how you see your time, right? So in my coaching practice, right, we're very much about planners and paper planners and using it on a weekly basis so you can see your time, when you have classes, when stuff due, when you're going to do it, right? And how that all goes to get for student athlete, practices, games, travel, off-season training, any social activities they have. So they can really start to see their time. And when they really start to see their time, like you just said, it starts to open up like, yeah, like I can figure it out. Then the next part is, how do you be strategic with your time, right? Yes, if you're feeling dead tired from practice, you might have to do a little work or take that pocket, take a quick nap, chill out, meditate, whatever works for you. Also remember, as a student athlete, you're going to have to fill in some of this time. So let's be strategic of where your classes are. When do you best operate? I'm a morning person, John. My classes don't start till 10. Okay, go on a sleep routine. And when you wake up at 8, do an hour's worth of work. And that starts to get it done. So those are the type of things we start to work on to address the challenge you just talked about.
I'm sure you hear this from parents, but a lot of people see student athletes like they're so disciplined in their sport, and then you see them undisciplined with homework.
Yep.
Why is that, and how do you override that?
I think it's the way the ADHD brain is wired, right? Because it's wired for interest. All the science behind ADHD is, right, you're driven by interest. That's where you hyper focus. You procrastinate things that don't interest you. Student athletes who play at a high level in high school and then go on to play at college or whatever level, they are very driven. The majority of them really enjoy what they do. They enjoy the training. They enjoy the competition. They enjoy the winning, right? Doing their personal best. That's very interesting to them. That comes second nature to me. It probably comes second nature to you. And probably at this stage in our life, no one really has to motivate us to go work out. I mean, if we have the time, we enjoy working out. We enjoy competing.
Yeah.
Right? For most student athletes, that's not where they're wired to be a student. Some are really diligent and vigilant about their work, but for most, it's not the same interest level, right? And it's harder. It doesn't come as naturally to them. So, and very understandably so, you and I were both that way. That being said, what I would say to parents is like, what I try to do is I try to tap into that athlete mentality. What makes you disciplined? What makes you get up to go do this? What are your whys for doing this? And I show them like, listen, you got the motivation, the grit, the willpower to do it all. It's all there. We can apply that to school. Let me show you how. Let me show you how to be more strategic with your time. Let me show you how you can tap into that discipline to be the student you want to be. And that can be anything they want to be. But that's what I try to do is translate what makes them successful as an athlete on the field, on the court, in the pool, to doing it in the classroom.
Yeah, I love that one. It's good to have the understanding too of how your brain is wired.
Yes.
Right. And then you get into your dopamine's flowing when you're on the field or in the pool or on the rink or whatever, and you just don't get those same highs and that dopamine in the classroom. And that's not an excuse, but I think a lot of students, when they have that understanding, they just realize there's nothing wrong with them.
Yeah, it goes back to a couple of things. Self-compassion. Then you had asked me at the beginning with my experience, like how was I able to pivot when I was in college? And something just came to my mind. It's like, well, I really enjoy winning my races and I really enjoy doing my best times. So maybe it came in my brain. It's like, I don't really enjoy getting C's in classes that I know I can get B's and A's. I don't really enjoy not doing well when I know I'm not putting in my best effort. So I think that's something we tap into as well. Athletes are very goal oriented, right? Make varsity, start, captain, make college, personal best, win this, win that. What would it look like if you put in that same effort in school, regardless of the effort, but you said like, that's what I need to do to make it happen. So I try to tap into that as well, like their goals and how they go about achieving their goals and showing like, you can do the same thing here. You put in your best effort and you get a B, great. You put in your best effort. You don't put in your best effort and you get a C, you probably know you left something on the table.
Yeah. Making it relevant to how they're driven, I think is so important, right?
Yeah.
And it's sometimes hard to make school feel relevant, especially something that gives you the slower feedback loops, right? Sports are great because you get really fast feedback loops, which we know is like heaven for the ADHD brain.
Right.
School is hard, but like you said, making it a game is probably the wrong word, but finding a way to make it more relevant, that's a big piece of this, because we know it's going to be hard work to build these skills. We have to have their buy-in for that hard work.
Yeah. And I think that for people that just don't dig school and they see it as the price of admission, there's still a lot to be said to tapping into the athlete mentality of effort, right? So less about getting a 4.0 or summa cum laude or whatever it is, but more just about that effort of putting it in there and feeling good about that effort. Because here's the thing that you and I work on. We're not working on student skills. We're working on life skills.
None of this really has anything to do with school at the end of the day.
Right. So if they become good time managers, if they see the results of being disciplined, of having ways to move around procrastination, motivation, that's going to serve them well at work. Because when they go to work and they turn things in late, there's no makeups.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Like after a while, you just might not work there anymore.
And as an athlete, you get a PhD in time management. A lot of non-student athletes, a lot of them struggle when they get outside of school because now they have all these demands in such little time. They have a family, they have all these emails, tasks, to-dos, and they struggle, right? Yeah. You and I see this, people in their early 20s. A lot of our student athletes are like, this is the way it's always been. And so looking at it as a gift in that sense can be really helpful.
I absolutely agree with it. And, I work with a lot of young professionals. I think you might have told me you work with young professionals, kids coming out of school, right? And they look for athletes.
Very much, because they know they're going to, if they made it through and they got a degree as a student athlete, you're going to have a very different set of skills than if someone was hanging out going to take 16 credit hours.
100%. I think what comes up for all the young people when they get out of school, but especially for student athletes, and this is not the negative, it's just the difference, is now there's more structure and there's less structure. So when you're a student athlete in college, you actually have a lot more structure than non-student athletes, right? Because you have your practices all the time. And now, wasn't for me, but definitely now, it's a full-time job. Even at like Division III level, it's a full-time job to go play a sport in school. You're used to that, and you've got the mentality, everything. If you go take a 9 to 5-ish job, you don't have all that around you. You don't have the structure, but what you do is have that mentality to get up in the morning and do your workouts before you go to your job and stuff like that. So yeah, I think there's definitely pluses and there's definitely challenges.
Oh yeah, definitely. But no, I agree with you that there's a lot of potential for growth here that I don't think people talk about. And I don't think our student athletes often see that. They see this as a very short-term thing where they can't go out on Friday night because they have a swim meet the next day and everyone else can. But reframing it in the sense that we're working on the long game here for you.
Yes.
My last question for you is, what is one of the most common universal strategies you give to all students? And I'll close with mine really quickly. So with student athletes, office hours are a non-negotiable. You double up your time. You're studying with the person giving you the test.
Right.
You're building a relationship. All these crazy things happen by giving up 30 minutes of your own time to go with, work with a TA or a professor.
So what I'm hearing is like self-advocacy.
Self-advocacy and treating office hours like you would a class. Like you don't miss those.
Yeah.
What are yours?
Own the day, don't let the day own you. So really, how do you go about your day with intention and purpose, right? How do you be proactive with your day? That's building your time management muscle. That's building your planning muscle. That's building your organization muscle. Sitting down every day, looking at your planner. What do I have today? What am I going to get done? What's coming up down the next couple of days or next week? When you have that sense of ownership, that sense of agency, that is a game changer for how you change your mindset. And it also allows you to be able to better adapt to what's going to be reactive in your day. Because no matter high school, college, professionals like us, there's always something reactive. But if you sit down every day and you get yourself a mentality like, what are my top priorities today? Or when you sit in the classroom and you pull out your notebook, what am I supposed to be learning, right? You start to invoke that type of discipline, you're going to have a very different mentality, a very different outlook on how your day goes. And to your point, like, yeah, maybe you can't go out on a Friday night. Or maybe if you're a very good time manager and well organized, you can scurry away a half hour, 40 minutes to see your friends, make an appearance, and you feel even better about it. And then you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
So I'm very much about ownership and sense of agency.
And planning, really understanding planning at a deep level versus the simple like, oh yeah, I'll do it. I'll keep it in my brain type of thing.
Yes.
Where can people learn more about you?
So the name of the company I work for is Order Out of Chaos. And our website is orderoochaos.com. And if you want to email me, you can email me at john@orderoochaos.com.
John, thank you so much for the work you do, and thanks for taking the time today.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure, Brandon. Appreciate you.
Thank you for joining us on the Executive Function for All podcast. If today's episode brought you any value, please rate us 5 stars and share it with someone who may benefit. And remember, every small step you take builds towards your success. For resources and guidance, visit untappedlearning.com. Keep growing, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.